Hello everyone, and welcome back to our garden, and welcome back to our kind of how to grow series. This series has been really popular, so I thought I would go ahead and update our pansy video because maybe I've left some things out, or forgot to mention a lot of the stuff, or how to grow pansies, the previous video that we had. This one also was a very popular request. So getting right on into this, obviously pansies are a cool season annual, technically a short-lived perennial, but most people consider them an annual in the garden. They really thrive and do their best when they are planted when the weather is pretty cool, just nice mild temperatures. And the same can also be said here in my yard, of course. So before we even get into how to grow them, you have a couple of options. Of course, you have the choice to plant them in the spring and get some early spring blooms, or plant them in the fall and enjoy them in the fall, or have them overwinter for even earlier spring blooms the next year. Now, you also have a few options in terms of seed starting, so let's talk about those first. Of course, you can start pansies indoors under grow lights. Personally, I do not use grow lights, so unfortunately I don't have much experience with that. However, I do know that pansies can benefit from a period of dark treatment to get that germination going initially. So what I do if I'm going to do that is I just fill up a tray with potting mix, and moist potting mix, obviously. Sow those seeds. I usually just surface sow the seeds and firm them into the soil, making sure that the seeds are coming into really good contact. And I just take a black plastic garbage bag and put that seed tray into the garbage bag. After about 3 days, I start checking for germination, usually in about 3 to 5 days, just, room temperature, 70 degrees. You will start to see germination kind of start to occur, and then you can kind of set them under grow lights and really grow those on. Another technique that I really like is the winter sowing method. This is ideal for people who want to start seeds in the spring, the early spring, for springtime blooms. If you are unfamiliar with the winter sowing method, I totally encourage you guys to check out the video that I already have here on the channel called The Complete Guide to the Winter Sowing Method. Basically, what the winter sowing method does is it uses recycled bottles, like, milk jugs and things, as miniature greenhouses so that we can start seeds outdoors without any kind of grow lights or anything like that. Basically, the bottle's just cut in half. We sow our seeds, we seal it, and we put it out. When I winter sow things like pansies, usually I put those out at the end of January and into February. Yes, the weather is still cold at this time, but those seeds are going to germinate whenever the time is right, and we're going to be able to grow out those transplants, move them into the garden, and just have a really beautiful spring display. That's a very good way to sow them. At least I've had great success with it here in my zone in Kentucky, in zone 6B7. So I am in a climate that gets, a little bit colder sometimes. The coldest part of my winter is about down to 0 Fahrenheit sometimes. I think that's about negative 17°C, just for some perspective. So these pansies really are, they really do demonstrate quite a bit of cold tolerance. And it is for this reason that I usually start my pansy seeds in the fall, usually about 1 month before my first frost date. So the end of September, early October is the best for me. All I do is I fill a seed tray full of moist potting mix and sow my seeds in there, and I set the tray outside in the garden in a protected, kind of sheltered place so that those seeds can begin to germinate. Now, a lot of people might cold stratify their seeds in the fridge about 1 to 2 weeks before this. That can definitely help, but personally I haven't, found that it's absolutely necessary, especially with this technique where, I'm growing the seeds outdoors. As you can see, usually within about 1 to 2 weeks of doing so, temperatures, consistent temperatures outside, they're very nice. I get good germination, usually about 90%. And again, no special treatment with this, which is really another added bonus. What I'm doing here in this video is I am transplanting the pansy seedlings into my unheated hoop house. Now, depending upon where you live, you may not even need an unheated hoop house before. In fact, here in my zone, I've had the pansies overwinter successfully outside during the winter without any kind of protection at all. And I imagine anybody with even a milder winter than me would also have that success. But I do get some snow and ice and things on occasion, so I wanted to really make sure that I was protecting these seedlings. If it gets really cold, I might put an extra frost blanket over top of it. Again, this is a process of trial and error. This is very much dependent upon your conditions, where you are, in kind of figuring out what works and what doesn't work to kind of get these pansies along through the season. The pansies are actually among the very first things to start blooming in my garden, and the very first flowers that I had open up this year were on February 16th. February 16th was the very first pansy flower that I had open, which I thought was amazing because, I mean, let's face it, here in my zone, February, it's still pretty cold. Still the chance of snow and everything. So I was very relieved to see that these flowers were starting to bloom. Here in my garden, I plant the pansies very, very close together. I'd say less than an inch spacing. And the main reason that I do that is because I grow these pansies for cut flowers, for use in cut flowers. And one of the things that helps kind of these pansies get taller and taller is to plant them closer together. And if you're using these as bedding plants, of course you do not have to space them this close together, but I do think it creates a very beautiful kind of mass display of flowers. I didn't feed these pansies or anything throughout the season. At planting time back in the fall, however, I made sure that this flower bed was full of a nice, rich, finished compost. A lot of you guys also wanted to know about the different flowers, the different types of pansies that I grew this season, so I did want to include that in this video as well. So here's a quick look at some of the different varieties that I actually grew this year. So admittedly, the pansy tour is going to be pretty quick. I only actually grew 4 types of pansies this year, but I know I've showed them a lot because I'm so surprised by how well they've grown. And I know a lot of you guys have been asking about them. I bought all of these seeds in this video from GeoSeed. They have a ton of pansies, a huge selection of pansies, and I've had a pretty good experience with them overall. So in case you were wondering, since I've been asked that a lot, some of these bloomed much, much earlier than others, and some of them bloomed much, much later. So kind of interesting there. The first one I wanted to show you guys is one from the Nature series, and it is the Mulberry Shades. These are gorgeous. I can't believe that I have not seen these on the internet anywhere else, on Instagram or something. Like, surely somebody's growing these, right? They are amazing. They bloomed like crazy. They have the most blooms I've ever seen with a pansy, especially growing a pansy from seed. They are these beautiful colors of just rich kind of purple rusty orange. Some of them are very, very dark. They get a little bit older. They fade to a beautiful orange color. Hands down, one of my favorites. Well, I say one of my favorites. I really liked all of the pansies that I grew this year, but beautiful. How come more people aren't growing these? I'm definitely going to be trying to get a hold of these seeds again in the future. Hands down, awesome. The next one that I wanted to show you guys is another one that's pretty popular. This one was made popular by Florida, of course. And this is also from the Nature series, so it's the same series. This is the Antique Shades from the Nature series. And you can definitely see the similarities. You can see the similarities in their bloom time and their growth habit and how many flowers they produce. You can also see the similarities in these kind of purple and orange tones, but these never go true purple. These are more kind of a very, very light hint of purple with that bright orange coming into focus. One of the most prominent things about it. What I really love about this pansy is the kind of unique veining and marking around each flower. It is just so delicate and so pretty, and like each flower looks as if it's kind of been like airbrushed or something. Now the footage in this video were all taken kind of earlier in the season when the stems were still pretty short, but usually around the end of May. The stems are very, very long, and I kind of just cut the whole plant, and I can use it for cut flower in like jam jars and, you know, canning jars and things like that. Not the greatest stem length, you know, but you gotta remember, these are pansies. They're not something, you know, really designed for cut flowers. Definitely another very, very beautiful flower that I would love to grow again in the future. Just such a gorgeous addition to our little cut flower arrangements and everything like that. The next one that I grew was called Panola Pink. It's from the Panola series. It's the Pink Shades Pansy. This is another one that is pretty popular, and I can see why. The Nature Shades, the flowers were quite a bit smaller, but in this Panola series, these flowers were enormous. They were easily twice the size of the other pansies. They didn't bloom as heavily. Unfortunately, I only had a few plants of these. I had about, I think, 10 seedlings of these plants, so I don't have many pictures of the flowers, unfortunately. But you can see they are just a very soft and delicate pink that is beautiful, especially if you're looking for, you know, pastel shades of pink and occasional dark purple flower, kind of pink lavender color is how I would best describe it. The last flowers to bloom here in the garden is the Chianti mix. Unfortunately, mine didn't really look that much like that same mix. I didn't get any of that unique speckling or markings or, you know, striping that was so attractive, you know, when I saw the pictures. Still, the pansies are very, very beautiful, and they're definitely a good option for somebody looking for a later season bloomer because it took so long for these to bloom. By the time these Chianti mix bloomed, my nature pansies had already been done blooming for, you know, 2 weeks. So very interesting to see the different bloom times. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. As always, all our links are down in the description, Patreon, the blog, everything else. Feel free to check out our merch if you want. We got some really fun shirts and everything. I hope that you are having an incredible day, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye, guys.